And welcome to uh, live meditation with Jeremy McMahan. Let me just take my seat. Cool. So I hope everybody is doing well today. Started out very cloudy and rainy here in Brooklyn this morning, but sun's starting to come out now. Looks like a nice day. Probably gonna take a walk later and enjoy it. Um, so, uh, last time I had a question about, actually, right before I ended the live stream, I got a question from my mom about what, or if I used a mantra or not when it comes to meditating. So I was going to talk a little bit about mantras today. Yeah, mantra is a big thing, particularly within the tradition of Tibetan Buddhism or Vajrayana Buddhism, esoteric Buddhism, tantric Buddhism. They're all kind of synonyms of the same thing, simplifying it. But um, we have this concept of a mantra in our culture, right? And a lot of the times, we think of a mantra as being like kind of like a positive affirmation, right? Say like you don't feel like you're good enough to do something. I am good enough. I am good enough. I am good enough. I am good enough. Um, so that's kind of like what we expect the mantra to be, really, is sort of this kind of invocation to have a particular meaning, too. So the thing about mantras traditionally in India and Tibet, generally mantras actually, I get the question all the time, or I used to get the question all the time when I worked at the Reuben, be like, oh, this is a mantra. This is the mantra of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. His mantra is Om Mani Padme Hum. People are always like, well, what does the mantra mean? And the thing about the mantras is that they don't actually mean anything traditionally. They're actually more just a kind of a combination of verbs, or sorry, vowels, a combination of different vowels sort of put together that are really meant to invoke the spirit or kind of invoke the presence of the deity in sound form. So by repeating Avalokiteshvara's mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, you're actually invoking his very presence. So, yeah. So that is really what mantras are used for in traditional Tibetan and Tantric Buddhism. Not so much for positive affirmations, but rather to invoke the presence of this deity, of whatever deity, and each deity has their own mantra. So sometimes people would be like, they kind of wouldn't believe me when I would tell them that they don't mean anything necessarily. But here's a concrete example of how and why they don't mean anything. And that so when Buddhism went to other cultures, particularly Tibet and China and Japan, often one of the things they do would translate Buddhist texts into the native language, right? And actually, the Tibetans, they were like the king translating, and they actually took what I've heard, and I totally believe, the most ambitious translation project in the history of humankind. That's the amount of text that they translated from Sanskrit and other Indian languages into Tibetan. So they translated a lot of stuff. But you know what they didn't translate? The mantras. The mantras are still in their original Sanskrit. And again, the reason why is because it's not so much the meaning of the mantra that's important, rather, it's the sound of the mantra that's important. So, again, they're kind of, I don't mean to, I don't know, mean this as a put down for mantras, but this kind of like similar to saying like abracadabra or something like that. Like, what does abracadabra mean? It doesn't really mean anything, but it's supposed to invoke a certain power, right? And it's the same thing with a mantra, you know. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, but you're supposed to invoke the power of the deity. Now, with that being said, of course, I'm talking very specifically about traditional Mahayana, Vajrayana, Tantric Buddhism as practiced in Asia. Um, now, of course, with meditation, there's transcendental meditation, another type of meditation, similar to mindfulness meditation. I don't practice transcendental meditation. I never have, so I can't really speak too authoritatively on it, but I know a bit about it. And from my understanding, the basic concept is that you do your transcendental meditation class, and they give you a personalized one syllable mantra, and you're not supposed to tell anybody your mantra. So I've never had any TM practitioners actually tell me my mantra. I know there's only like 50 or like 50 mantras or so it's kind of like you just sort of kind of I don't know, but I guess they figure out which mantra works best for you. They give you one. You're not supposed to tell anybody. And from my understanding, that type of meditation is actually pretty similar to the types of meditation that we're doing, right? Where we're moving our attention. You know, first we're moving our attention from different parts of the body, and then we're moving our attention to, to our breath and following our breath. From my understanding, transcendental meditation is much the same, except you focus on this particular mantra, whatever the mantras are. And I'm pretty sure they're like one syllable mantras. So like Om or Ha or Hum or something like that. And that is really like the object of your focus of meditation is the mantra. So you can, if you want, because really this type of meditation that we're doing, you can kind of choose whatever object of focus you want. It doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, there's some good ones, but if you really wanted to focus on a word or sound or something like that, um, feel free. It's the same rules. Just every time that you notice that you're distracted from whatever your object of meditation is, just move your attention back to to that focused object, whatever that object may be. So that's my little spiel about mantras. I guess I'll also say when I'm practicing meditation by myself, and this is a very traditional thing to do in Tibetan traditions, which is my lineage is from a Tibetan lineage. So one of the things I do in prepping for my meditation is say the Vajrasattva mantra. Is Om Vajrasattva Hum, Om Vajrasattva Hum, Om Vajrasattva Hum. I say it 5 to 7 times. And Vajrasattva he's kind of like the deity. He's sort of like the ideal student is kind of his like role in the pantheon of Buddhist gods. And so a lot of the times students when starting a new practice or starting a practice invoke his presence because he's really the kind of the one that you're supposed to sort of like base yourself off of. He's like the model student that you're supposed to invoke. So I do say that every time before I meditate. It's supposed to be kind of like a cleansing thing, cleanses the area. And then also, right before I start meditating, I go Om, Ah, Hum, and then Hri, but you kind of secretly say the Hri. And Om is meant to purify the body, Ah is meant to purify the speech, and Hum is meant to purify the heart, and Hri is sort of just feels it all together. So I'll go Om, Ah, Hum, and then start. So that's personally how I use mantras. And then the last thing I'll mention too, before we start meditating, which kind of relates to mantras, is sort of what I was talking about when we think of mantras in the West, how it's kind of more like positive affirmations or what have you. Um, There is a form of meditation that I do want to teach eventually on the channel called metta, or loving kindness meditation. And this type of meditation, you're not using what we would call mantras, but you're using these kind of repetitive phrases that you say again and again and again. And so just to summarize, the basics of metta, you generally say, you offer metta to yourself generally. So you say something along the lines of, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be safe, may I live without fear. So you repeat that again and again, and that becomes your object of focus, those phrases. So, something, again, it doesn't have to be exact, but may I be happy, may I be healthy. Now I can't even remember what I said. May I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be safe, may I live with ease. Something like that. And then you offer that meditation to somebody else. So somebody um, that you have an easy relationship for. It's not necessarily somebody that you have a close relationship, but somebody that you're like, oh yeah, I just like that person, and you don't have any kind of like drama with them. Then you offer it to them. May you be happy. May you be safe. Um, may you, you gotta keep forgetting. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you live with peace. And then you do it. That's the second step. And then the third step is you do it for somebody that you just don't really care about. Somebody that you're ambivalent about. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And then the last step is you actually do it towards somebody that you actively hate, or actively despise, rather. So I know, for instance, when I've heard stories about when Trump got elected, that all these Buddhists started practicing metta and started actually offering him loving kindness. People are supposed to. That's the real extreme practice, is offering it to somebody that you really, really don't like or you really disagree with. So that to me is more aligned with like using something like or like a mantra, that we have in the West. I am good enough. I am good enough. I am good enough. And like, that type of thing sounds a little cheesy, but for me personally, with the meditation, it's pretty profound. And again, I was like, I don't want it. Loving kindness. That sounds like hokey, but yeah, it really does. You really feel it in your body, the changes in your body when practicing. So I definitely want to do that. Maybe in a week or two, we'll try a round of loving kindness. It's a good practice. But for now, let's go ahead and get started with our meditation. So today we'll do the similar things that we've been doing. We'll start off with a body scan. I'll ring the bell twice. We'll do a body scan. Then I'll ring the bell once. We'll take a break. I'll ring the bell again. We'll start 3 to 4 minute round of meditation focusing on our breath. Ring the bell once. Do another break. Then ring it again. Do one final round, and then I'll ring it 3 times. Oh, also, I should say, if you have any questions, I mean, maybe you shouldn't be writing questions when you're meditating, but just in general through this whole thing. I'm used to doing this like with actual people live, so it's kind of easier then to have like a live Q&A. But just if you have a question, just feel free to just type it in the comments, and I'll try to get to it at some point during the session. And if not this session, then I'll try to answer your questions in the session. Cool. All right. Okay, so we'll start off with our body scan. Again, just take a comfortable seat. You don't have to be sitting cross-legged. If you're just sitting in a chair, that's fine. You want to make sure that your back is relatively straight but not strained. Feel free to keep your eyes open or closed, whatever most comfortable for you. And if you're sitting in a chair, just make sure that your feet are firmly planted on the ground. Okay, so here we go. All right, so we're gently going to move our attention now to our feet. Begin to feel that part of your body. Notice, how do my feet feel? Maybe they feel cold. Maybe they feel warm. Maybe you have bare feet. Maybe you have socks on. Whatever the case, just become aware of how your feet feel in this moment. Notice that. All right, now we're going to move our attention to our seat, where we feel our body held up, supported. Aware of that support. Just notice how that part of your body feels right now. Now we're going to move our attention up to our belly. Notice how that feels. I'm aware of its movement as it follows the breath. Now we're going to move our attention up to our heart. That space in the middle of your chest. Just feel that area of your body. Become aware of it. Now we're going to move our attention to the back of the shoulders. Noticing that area of the body. How do they feel? Now we'll move our attention to the back of the head. Feeling that part of our body. Alright, now we'll move our attention back down to our feet. Just noticing them, how they feel in this moment. Now we'll move our attention up to our seat. Feeling the support. Now we'll move our attention up to our belly, noticing its movements. Now move our attention to our heart, to that space in the middle of our chest. Now move our attention to the back of the shoulders. And up to the back of the head. Alright, move your attention back down to your feet. Now move your attention up to your seat. Now move your attention to your belly. Move your attention to your heart. Now move your attention back of the shoulders. Then to the back of the head. Right, in just a moment I will ring the bell, ending our first round of meditation. Cool, first one down. Alright, so just take a quick break. Alright, let's get into it. So this round of meditation, again, we'll be focusing on our breath. And whenever you notice that you're no longer focusing on your breath, just recognize you've been distracted and bring your attention back to the feeling of the breath. All right, here we go. Now bring your awareness to whatever part of the body where you feel the breath the most. Some people it's in your belly, for other people it's their chest, some people nostrils. Wherever you feel the breath, move your attention there. Gently watch how your breath moves. You don't need to change anything about the breath. Just become aware of it. If you become distracted, thought or feeling pulls you away, just recognize that you've been distracted. Gently move your attention back to the breath. Then if a thought or a feeling arises, you notice you're no longer focusing on it. That's truly okay. Just recognize that you've been distracted. Bring your attention back to the breath. And if a thought from the past, feeling about the future comes, sweeps you away, it's really okay. Just recognize that you've been distracted. Gently move your attention back to the breath. Right in the moment, I will ring the bell, ending our second round of meditation. All right, so we have one more round left. Just take a quick break. Again, this round I won't do any guiding. You'll be on your own. So we'll just do a quick 3 to 4 minute meditation on just focusing on the breath again. Any thought or feeling comes, you become distracted. It's that noticing that you've been distracted. That's really um, the key step in this practice of meditation. Noticing you've been distracted, gently bringing your attention back to the breath without judgment. So don't beat yourself up and you're like, oh, I had a thought. Just notice that you're distracted and gently move your attention back to the breath. All right, here we go. One more round. See you on the other side. All right, in just a moment, I will ring the bell 3 times. Once you've heard the third ring, I invite you to join me in a bow. dedicating all the merit that we've accrued to this practice to the benefit of all sense.